Nicholson grew up in Neptune, New Jersey. His father, an alcoholic, abandoned the family soon after his birth. Today, Jack Nicholson is 45 and divorced with a grown-up daughter, Jennifer.
Jack Nicholson, the name alone sparks images of unforgettable movie moments and larger-than-life charisma. With a career spanning over 5 decades, he defined what it means to be a Hollywood icon. From his haunting portrayal of a man losing his mind in The Shining to the mischievous Joker in Batman, Nicholson has played characters that left a lasting mark on cinema. But beyond the fame and applause lies a quieter, more reflective chapter. Once the life of every party in the King of Hollywood's golden age, Nicholson now spends his days in solitude at his Beverly Hills mansion. What happened to the man who once commanded every room? Join us as we delve into the highs, the lows, and the bittersweet reality of Jack Nicholson's life story, right from the very beginning. The Secret Life of Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson's life may seem like an open book to his fans, but it's full of twists that even he didn't see coming. He was born on April 22, 1937, in Neptune City, New Jersey. Growing up, Nicholson believed he was just another kid in a regular family. He had 2 older sisters, June and Lorraine, and a strong maternal figure in his mother, Ethel May. Or so he thought. But the truth was far more complicated. In reality, June was Nicholson's mother, Lorraine was his aunt, and Ethel May was his grandmother. This family secret was hidden from Nicholson for more than 30 years. But there was a reason behind this secrecy. In the conservative 1930s, June's pregnancy out of wedlock, with a man Nicholson never met, was a scandal the family wanted to bury. They raised Nicholson under a web of lies, protecting both him and June from judgment. It wasn't until a 1974 Time magazine investigation into Nicholson's life uncovered the truth that he learned who his real mother was. By then, both June and Ethel May had passed away, leaving Nicholson to process this life-altering revelation on his own. Reflecting on it later, Nicholson remarked, "I was very impressed by their ability to keep the secret, if nothing else." Nicholson's early years were filled with rebellion, too. At Manasquan High School, he earned the title of class clown and spent an entire school year in detention. But those early antics were just a glimpse of the larger-than-life personality he would bring to Hollywood. But when Jack Nicholson first stepped into Hollywood, the odds weren't in his favor, proving everyone wrong in Hollywood. At just 17, he arrived in Los Angeles for what was supposed to be a short holiday, but the city drew him in. He took odd jobs at production studios, slowly inching his way toward acting. His first roles weren't glamorous. Nicholson started with low-budget B-movies, debuting in 1958's The Crybaby Killer. His early performances didn't hint at the star he would become. Despite his dedication, many doubted Nicholson's future. "Everyone who knew me said I was good, but everyone who knew me said I wouldn't make it, because I hadn't made it so far," Nicholson admitted to The Independent. Those words could have crushed someone else's spirit, but Nicholson kept going. His breakthrough came with 1969's Easy Rider, where he played a free-spirited lawyer. That performance catapulted him to fame, leading to iconic roles in Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and The Shining. His career became synonymous with Hollywood excellence, earning him 12 Oscar nominations, the most for any male actor in history. As Nicholson's star rose, his confidence grew. In later years, he didn't shy away from acknowledging his success. "I am probably the most successful actor in the history of movies, financially speaking," he once said. But his journey from struggling actor to Hollywood royalty wasn't without challenges, including tense relationships with some of his collaborators, feuds, fame, and wild nights. In a career spanning over 50 years, Nicholson worked with countless actors and directors. While he gained many friends, he also made his fair share of enemies. One of his most notable clashes was with comedian John Belushi during the filming of Nicholson's directorial venture, Goin' South. Nicholson had personally chosen Belushi for the role, but the two didn't get along. Belushi's erratic behavior and drug use strained their relationship, so much so that decades later, a short film titled The Cowboy and the Samurai was inspired by their feud. One line allegedly spoken by Belushi sums up their tension: "If I see him, I'll punch him." Speaking of which, Nicholson also butted heads with director Milos Forman during the making of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Though the film was a critical and commercial success, their creative differences led to constant friction on set. Nicholson's suggestions were often rejected, which created tension between the two. Then there was Ray Winstone, Nicholson's co-star in The Departed, who publicly criticized Nicholson's attitude. Winstone once said, "There's no need for it. This kind of feeling of being above everyone else." These feuds, however, were just one side of Nicholson's larger-than-life persona. Off-screen, Nicholson's wild lifestyle was the stuff of Hollywood legend. His Mulholland Drive mansion was famous for its non-stop parties, often described as the wildest in town. Stories of his drug use became as famous as his film roles. His ex-girlfriend Angelica Houston once revealed that Nicholson used cocaine to fight lethargy, saying, "I think Jack sort of used it, probably like Freud did, in a rather smart way." Despite the endless speculation about his hard-partying ways, Nicholson maintained that he always had control over his life. "I've woken up in trees, I've woken up almost hanging off cliffs, but I've always known how to sort myself out," he told the Daily Mail. Contrary to opinion, he added, his life wasn't as chaotic as people imagined. Jack Nicholson's rocky road as a director. After years of captivating audiences in front of the camera, Jack Nicholson decided to try his hand behind it. His directorial debut, Drive, He Said, 1971, was as bold and unfiltered as the man himself. The independent film explored liberal themes and included risque scenes that didn't sit well with audiences at the time. At the Cannes Film Festival, the movie sparked such outrage that the backlash was hard to ignore. On top of that, it didn't perform well commercially. But Nicholson, never one to shy away from a challenge, didn't let that stop him. Several years later, Nicholson directed Goin' South, 1978, a Western comedy that starred himself alongside John Belushi. Unfortunately, this film also failed to impress critics or audiences. The disappointment didn't discourage Nicholson, though. In fact, he stood by his work and his abilities as a director. "I think I've got the seed of it," he once said, confident in his unique taste and perspective. His third and final attempt at directing came with The Two Jakes, 1990, a sequel to the critically acclaimed Chinatown. The production faced countless issues, and the movie couldn't live up to its predecessor's success. The challenges and failures eventually led Nicholson to abandon his dreams of directing. "Discussions of my directing always get me into trouble," he once joked, referring to the stress it caused him. Speaking of trouble, did you know that Jack Nicholson's name is often linked to controversy as well? Troubling allegations and controversies. One of the most serious incidents involved a lawsuit in 1996 when a sex worker accused him of assault. She claimed Nicholson became aggressive after refusing to pay her the agreed $1,000. Later allegations from her legal team even suggested that the incident caused lasting physical damage. Although Nicholson settled the case, it remains a dark mark on his legacy. This wasn't the only troubling incident involving Nicholson. In the 1990s, another woman accused him of aggressive behavior, alleging he damaged her breast implants. These allegations painted a disturbing picture of Nicholson during a period when his temper seemed to make headlines. Even more shocking was Nicholson's connection to Roman Polanski's infamous 1977 case. Polanski, a close friend and director of Chinatown, committed a heinous act of abuse against a 13-year-old girl at Nicholson's home while he was away. Despite the incident, Nicholson continued to praise Polanski, referring to him as a genius. This association remains one of the most controversial aspects of Nicholson's life. And while Jack Nicholson's charm often made him a favorite among his peers, his behavior didn't always win over his female co-stars. Strained relationships with female co-stars. One of the most notable stories involves Meryl Streep during the filming of Heartburn, 1986. Rumors swirled about a possible romance, but some accounts claimed Nicholson's advances made Streep deeply uncomfortable. A biography published years later alleged that Nicholson's persistence led Streep to kick him out of her hotel room. Though Streep denied the story, she did recall Nicholson telling her about the nude scenes her character would have in another film they considered working on together. Geena Davis also experienced Nicholson's advances early in her career. She recounted how she deflected his flirtation using advice from Dustin Hoffman. "I would love to, but it would ruin the sexual tension between us." While Davis's response was clever, it was more about Nicholson's reputation for crossing boundaries. Speaking of which, even Cher, one of his co-stars in The Witches of Eastwick, 1987, found herself doubting her place on the set. Nicholson and the film's director, George Miller, reportedly wanted to replace her, saying she was too old and not sexy. While Cher eventually stayed in the role, the experience was a blow to her confidence. Now, Did you know that Jack Nicholson's reputation as a playboy is quite legendary, with stories of his romantic escapades almost as famous as his movies? The playboy persona and its heartaches. It's often said that he slept with around 2,000 women, though Nicholson himself once told the Daily Mail, "Hell, I don't count." His charm and charisma drew many women into his life, but his longest and most complicated relationship was with actress Anjelica Huston. The two met in 1973 and began a passionate on-again, off-again relationship that lasted over a decade. Their love story ended for good in 1989, when Nicholson had a child with actress Rebecca Broussard. The breakup was painful for Huston, but Nicholson didn't escape the heartbreak unscathed. Speaking to Vanity Fair, he described the aftermath of the split, saying, "You're left, you're abandoned, and you're not going to be over it for another year, whatever the FK you do." While Nicholson's relationships often seemed fleeting, his close friend Helena Kalianiotis revealed another side of him. She described him as someone who took a long time to let women into his life. Breakups, she said, were particularly tough on him, even if his public image suggested otherwise. You see, Nicholson's relationships were as complex as the characters he played on screen. Beneath the confident playboy persona was a man who, at times, felt deeply hurt and alone. Speaking of which, let's have a look at his personal life. The bachelor who never settled. Jack Nicholson is famously known as Hollywood's ultimate bachelor. Despite fathering 6 children with 5 different women, Nicholson only walked down the aisle once. His marriage to actress Sandra Knight lasted from 1962 to 1968, and they welcomed a daughter, Jennifer Nicholson, during their time together. After the divorce, Nicholson embraced his single status, often stating that monogamy didn't suit his lifestyle. Even those close to him recognized his aversion to long-term commitment. Margaret Trudeau, a former lover and the mother of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, once wrote, he understood that marriage and monogamy were simply not ideally suited to his life as a movie star. But this mindset didn't stop Nicholson from being irresistibly charming. Over the years, his relationships with women became a defining part of his public persona. Nicholson admitted in 2011 that his magnetism had faded with time. "There were points in my life where I felt oddly irresistible to women. I'm not in that state now, and that makes me sad," he confessed. Still, he acknowledged the lessons aging had taught him. "A lot of the improvements in my character have come through aging and the diminishing of powers," he added. From playboy to homebody. In his prime, Jack Nicholson's love life was the stuff of Hollywood legend. He was linked to a string of high-profile women, including singer Michelle Phillips, actress Lara Flynn Boyle, and supermodel Janice Dickinson. His most significant romance was with actress Anjelica Huston. Their passionate on-again, off-again relationship lasted over a decade before ending in 1989, when Nicholson had a child with Rebecca Broussard. By 2013, Nicholson's wild days were behind him. He admitted to The Sun that age had changed his perspective. "I'm still wild at heart, but I've hit biogravity," he said. Approaching women in public no longer felt right to him, and his priorities shifted. "A lot of me being an actor was about meeting women," he revealed, but the thrill was no longer the same. Today, Nicholson spends most of his time at his home on Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles. He rarely goes out and prefers the comfort of his own space. "I got tired of arguing with women about going to have dinners, so I hired a cook," he joked. While his legendary charm may have faded, Nicholson seems at peace with his quieter life. His days of chasing women may be over, but Jack Nicholson's legacy as one of Hollywood's greatest actors and most charismatic figures remains unmatched. Speaking of which, Nicholson's role as a father has been as complex as his relationships. While he has 6 children, he's only been actively involved in the lives of a few. Jack Nicholson's complex family tree. He has 6 children with 5 different women, but his bonds with them vary greatly. His eldest child, Jennifer Nicholson, was born in 1963 during his marriage to actress Sandra Knight. This marriage, lasting from 1962 to 1968, remains Nicholson's only trip down the aisle. Jennifer grew up during the height of Nicholson's early career and is one of the few children he remains close to. Nicholson also shares a son, Caleb Goddard, with actress Susan Anspach. Caleb was born in 1970 but was adopted by Anspach's husband, Mark Goddard, and Nicholson didn't publicly acknowledge him until Caleb was in his late 20s. Despite this late recognition, their relationship didn't seem particularly close. Then there's Honey Holman, Nicholson's daughter, with Danish model Winnie Holman, born in 1981. Honey has stayed away from the spotlight, and Nicholson has never openly acknowledged her as his daughter. Lorraine and Ray Nicholson, his children with actress Rebecca Broussard, have had a different experience. Lorraine, 33, and Ray, 32, seem to share a closer bond with their father. Nicholson has been seen with Ray at LA Lakers games, one of the few times he ventures out in public these days. In a 2008 interview, Nicholson shared his hopes for Lorraine and Ray, saying, "I want to be inspirational, or some kind of good influence on them, without overburdening them. It's their time of life to find out who they are." The strain with Tessa Guerin. Jack Nicholson's youngest child, Tessa Guerin, has been vocal about their estranged relationship. Tessa was born in 1994 from Nicholson's relationship with waitress Janan Guerin. Unlike Lorraine and Ray, Tessa never had the opportunity to develop a bond with her father. She has publicly described their interactions as rare and awkward, saying, "The truth is, in all of my 28 years of life, we have never had a relationship." In a 2023 essay for Newsweek, Tessa shared her feelings about Nicholson's absence in her life. While she acknowledged that he supported her financially, she made it clear that he had no interest in building a personal connection. "My mom wanted me to have a relationship with him, but he said he wasn't interested," Tessa explained. Tessa also challenged the idea that her existence was something to be hidden. "I'm not something to be ashamed of," she wrote, adding that Nicholson has never publicly acknowledged her as his daughter. Despite the lack of a relationship, Tessa continues to struggle with the legacy of being linked to one of Hollywood's most influential actors. Nicholson has spoken about fatherhood over the years, often highlighting the moments he cherishes with his children. "What do I do well as a father? I'm there all the time. I give unconditional love," he told Esquire. However, this sentiment doesn't ring true for all of his children. While Jennifer, Lorraine, and Ray appear to have a stronger bond with Nicholson, others like Caleb, Honey, and Tessa tell a more complicated story. In many ways, Nicholson's life as a father mirrors his personality, full of contrasts. He has been a hands-on dad for some, taking his kids to operas, ball games, and film sets, but for others, he remains a distant figure, someone they know more through his reputation than personal interactions. For Nicholson, fatherhood seems to be as unpredictable and layered as the roles he's played on screen. Why Jack Nicholson stepped out of the spotlight. Jack Nicholson is one of the most celebrated actors in Hollywood history, with a career that includes 3 Academy Awards and a record-breaking 12 nominations. His iconic performances in films like The Shining, Chinatown, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest cemented his legacy as a cinematic legend. But for more than a decade, Nicholson has been absent from the silver screen. Although he's never officially announced his retirement, his absence has been noticeable and deeply felt. So, why has the actor who once dominated Hollywood faded from public life? A major factor could be the disappointment surrounding his last film, How Do You Know, 2010. Directed by James L. Brooks, the movie seemed promising on paper, given Brooks's successful collaborations with Nicholson in the past. But the film flopped spectacularly, earning harsh reviews and losing millions at the box office. Critics didn't hold back, with one calling it a depressing parade of nothingness. For Nicholson, this failure may have been a signal to step back, especially after decades of starring in critically acclaimed hits. You see, Nicholson rose to fame during a golden era of filmmaking, when the new Hollywood movement was transforming cinema. Movies like Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, and Chinatown pushed creative boundaries and gave Nicholson a platform to shine. But the industry shifted in the late 1970s with the rise of blockbuster films like Jaws and Star Wars. While many of Nicholson's contemporaries struggled to adapt, he successfully transitioned into big-budget projects like Batman and Wolf. He alternated these with prestige dramas, continuing to dominate the industry. By the early 2000s, Nicholson began embracing his age on screen, starring in films like About Schmidt and The Bucket List. These roles showcased a more reflective side of him, but they also pigeonholed him into a specific category. As Hollywood increasingly focused on superhero franchises and younger stars, the types of roles Nicholson thrived in started to disappear. Unlike some older actors who found new opportunities in comic book films, Nicholson seemed uninterested. He'd already left his mark on the genre as the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman. For Nicholson, revisiting similar projects may have felt redundant, and the rise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't appeal to his sensibilities. This gradual change in the industry likely contributed to his decision to step back. Jack Nicholson's changing view of Hollywood. Jack Nicholson's connection to Hollywood has evolved over the years. In a 2013 interview with The Sun, he admitted that the allure of fame and the industry wasn't as strong as it used to be. "I'm not going to work until the day I die. That's not why I started this," he said. While he loved the movie business, he no longer felt the same drive to be part of it. "I mean, I'm not a loner, I'm not a recluse, but I don't need all that anymore. I don't enjoy it, simple as that." Nicholson also revealed the stress that came with taking on new roles. "Most times, I can think of other actors who would be better in the part," he confessed. This constant worry weighed on him, making the idea of acting less appealing as time went on. Another factor was the changing nature of Hollywood itself. Nicholson preferred films that moved people emotionally, but he felt that modern audiences wanted something different. "Maybe people in their 20s and 30s don't actually want to be moved anymore," he said. "They may want just to see more bombs, more explosions, because that is what they have grown up with. And I'll never do that type of movie." Missed opportunities and almost comebacks. Since his last film, Nicholson has turned down several notable roles. After his critically acclaimed performance in About Schmidt, 2002, director Alexander Payne offered him the lead in Nebraska, 2013. Nicholson declined, and the part went to Bruce Dern, who earned an Oscar nomination. Nicholson was also rumored to star in St. Vincent, a role that eventually went to Bill Murray. Both roles were critically praised, leaving many wondering why Nicholson passed on them. Even his old collaborators couldn't coax him back to the screen. Warren Beatty, who directed Nicholson in Reds, approached him for Rules Don't Apply. Payne returned with another offer, but Nicholson declined again. He was also approached for The Judge and 42, roles that ultimately went to Robert Duvall and Harrison Ford, respectively. These missed opportunities suggest that Nicholson's absence wasn't the result of a single decision. Instead, it appears to be a gradual retreat fueled by his own selective nature. His legendary status gave him the freedom to choose his projects, but it also made him more cautious about his next steps. After the disappointment of How Do You Know, Nicholson may have felt there was no need to risk tarnishing his legacy further. Speaking of which, rumors about Jack Nicholson's health have also surrounded his decision to step away. Concerns about health and privacy. In 2013, gossip publications claimed he was suffering from memory loss, making it difficult for him to remember lines. However, Nicholson himself refuted these claims in an interview, saying he was still sharp and capable. Despite this, the rumors may have influenced how Hollywood saw him, possibly discouraging studios from offering him roles. Nicholson has always been a private person, and this only intensified as he got older. He admitted that his life had changed in significant ways, saying, "You adjust your life to your circumstances, and I can spend a lot of time on my own." Over time, he became more of a homebody, rarely venturing into the public eye. His rare appearances now make headlines. In 2023, he was spotted on the balcony of his Mulholland Drive home, sparking global attention. Friends and sources describe him as someone who values his solitude and prefers to live life on his terms. Coming to terms with aging. For a man who once dominated Hollywood, aging hasn't been an easy adjustment for Jack Nicholson. In an interview with the Daily Mail, he acknowledged the impact of time, saying, "I've struck biogravity." He admitted to feeling a constant loss as he saw friends pass away and became more aware of his own mortality. "There were points in my life where I felt oddly irresistible to women. I'm not in that state now, and that makes me sad," he added. Yet, Nicholson also found some positives in growing older. He reflected on his 70th birthday, saying, "Pretty much for the first time in my life, I felt young for my age." He believed that age had improved his character, even if it had taken a toll on his physical appearance. "I have looked better, I agree," he joked to The Guardian. Jack Nicholson's quiet life at 87. Jack Nicholson now lives a much quieter life. After decades in the limelight, the legendary actor prefers to stay out of the public eye. His last public appearance before 2023 was in October 2021, sparking concern from fans. But in April 2023, he was photographed on the balcony of his Beverly Hills home, looking relaxed, though slightly disheveled. A month later, he was courtside at an LA Lakers game with his son Ray, reassuring fans that he's still enjoying life in his own way. Jack's main residence is on Mulholland Drive, a sprawling estate he's owned since 1969. The property holds sentimental value. He's expanded it over the years, even purchasing Marlon Brando's neighboring estate in 2005. The 3-acre compound offers Jack the solitude he now seeks. According to his friend Lou Adler, Jack enjoys simple pleasures like sitting under a tree, reading, and listening to the birds. He wants to live the life he wants, Adler explained, emphasizing Jack's desire for peace and quiet. While speculation about Jack Nicholson's health has circulated in recent years, with some reports suggesting he might be battling dementia, friends and close associates have refuted these claims. Bill O'Reilly, a longtime friend, described Jack as intellectually nimble and dismissed the rumors, saying, "I had a long conversation with him, and he's sharper than most." A legacy worth revisiting. Jack Nicholson's contributions to cinema are unmatched. With 3 Academy Awards and a record 12 nominations, he's one of the greatest actors in history. Directors like James L. Brooks, who worked with Jack on Terms of Endearment and As Good as It Gets, still hold out hope that he'll return to the screen. "I keep on thinking he's going to get itchy and scratch it," Brooks said, hoping Jack might take on one final role. For now, Nicholson seems content in his quiet life, a far cry from his days as Hollywood's ultimate party animal. While fans long for his return, it seems the actor has found peace in his decision to step away. His absence is felt, but his legacy remains as vibrant as ever. Do you think Jack Nicholson will ever make a surprise comeback? Or is his quiet life the perfect ending to his Hollywood story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating stories.